The envelope was cold in my hand. Not the paper, not the wax seal me. My fingers trembled slightly, though I told myself it was from exhaustion, from the years of being unseen, unheard. I had turned 30 today. Another year spent being nothing in their eyes. Dad's eyes were sharp, but distant, like he was observing a stranger. "It's from your grandma," he said, voice flat. No warmth, no smile, just a handoff of responsibility, of truth I wasn't supposed to have until now. He didn't stay to watch me open it. I didn't care. I tore the envelope slowly, deliberately. Inside, a folded letter, the faint scent of old paper and perfume. The key rested atop it, cold metal reflecting the dim light of the kitchen. My breath caught. My grandma had died believing I had nothing, believing I was less than her other grandchildren. Less than anyone. I unfolded the letter. Her handwriting was shaky, uneven, but every word was deliberate. "If you're reading this, you outlived your parents. This key opens a box at the bank. Inside is everything they tried to hide from you. Everything." The word echoed inside me, bouncing off the walls of years of quiet humiliation. My parents had smiled at my missteps, laughed at my failures, told me I was hopeless. And all this time, she had known. She had tried to protect me, in her own way. I stared at the key, imagining the box it opened, imagining the contents. Money, jewelry, papers, secrets. I felt anger rising first, sharp and bitter, then curiosity, then something I hadn't allowed myself to feel in years: control, power. I glanced at Dad again. He was gone, retreating into his routines. My mother wouldn't even notice for hours. And my sister? She was in her room, probably laughing with her friends, oblivious. They didn't see me. They never did. I slid the key into my pocket. The letter went back into the envelope. I didn't need to read it again. I knew what I had to do. The kitchen was silent except for the hum of the refrigerator. I sat at the table, staring at the envelope, thinking about the years they had stolen from me, thinking about the nights I spent wondering if anyone in this family actually cared. They didn't. But now, the rules had changed. The balance had shifted, silently, invisibly, in my favor. They had no idea what was coming. No idea that in a few hours, I would begin reclaiming everything they thought they could hide from me. I rose, carefully, deliberately. The key burned a cold hole in my pocket. A promise. A warning. And for the first time in my life, I smiled, not for them, not for anyone, for me. The storm had begun, and I was holding the match. The next morning, drove to the bank. Traffic crawled, but I didn't care. My mind replayed every cruel word, every glance, every smirk my family had ever directed at me. "You'll never make it. That's not good enough. Why can't you be more like your sister?" I passed my sister's apartment building, the one she had inherited from grandma's favoritism. I almost smiled at the irony. She had always gotten everything handed to her: the new car, the private school, the promotions, the praise. And me? I was nothing. Or at least, that's what they wanted me to believe. I pushed open the bank door. The receptionist looked up, polite but disinterested. I handed her the envelope, the key glinting in my hand. "Box 47, I said, calm, measured. I had memorized the number from Grandma's letter. The key turned smoothly. The lock clicked like a gunshot in the silent vault. Inside, the contents were worse than I could have imagined. Documents, papers, ledgers, legal contracts, letters, and then, beneath them, a small stack of envelopes marked with my name, from Grandma herself. As I sorted through the papers, I realized the full extent of the betrayal. My parents had deliberately mismanaged Grandma's estate. My inheritance, my rightful portion, had been hidden, ignored, manipulated to appear non-existent. Every time I asked for help, every time I struggled, they smiled, feigned ignorance, and kept the truth from me. The anger that rose was sharp, hot, almost physical, but I held it in. I wasn't going to explode. That wasn't the point. This wasn't about yelling or crying. This was about strategy, about precision. Among the letters, I found one from my grandmother that froze me. "They will try to erase you. Protect what is yours. They will not stop. Remember, You are smarter than they know. I felt my pulse slow. My chest tightened. Grandma had prepared me for this. She had known my parents' capacity for cruelty, for manipulation, and now, armed with truth, I could finally see them for what they were. The betrayal wasn't just financial, it was emotional, systematic. My parents had spent decades shaping the narrative of my life, convincing everyone I was the disappointment, the failure, the child who didn't belong. And my sister, she had been their perfect pawn. I folded the letters carefully, taking stock of what I had. The truth was mine, not their version, their lies, not their stories, mine. And with it came a plan, quiet, deliberate, a path forward that didn't require confrontation yet, but would eventually demand reckoning. I left the bank, the envelopes tucked securely in my bag. Outside, the city moved on, oblivious. My parents, my sister, everyone in that family, they were blind to the fact that the balance had shifted. I was no longer their pawn. I was the player. I didn't rush. I never rushed. Patience had always been my weapon, something they never understood. I returned home, locked the door behind me, and spread the documents across the table. Every contract, every letter, every account statement told the same story. Decades of deception, again tracking patterns, dates, and amounts. Small sums diverted here, assets hidden there. My parents had worked meticulously to make me appear incompetent, irresponsible, and powerless. Every decision I'd ever made had been questioned, mocked, undermined, and every helpful suggestion they'd offered had been a trap. I checked phone records next. Late night calls to lawyers, suspicious withdrawals, transfers disguised as payments. Everything lined up like a puzzle they thought I'd never notice. I took notes, cataloged everything, but it wasn't enough to know. I needed proof. Concrete, undeniable proof that couldn't be brushed off with excuses or lies. I requested copies of bank statements, legal filings, and emails. Every response I received added fuel to the cold fire simmering in my chest. They had assumed I would remain the invisible child, the quiet failure. They hadn't counted on my resolve. Meanwhile, I maintained the appearance of normalcy. Work, errands, casual calls with friends. No one could suspect the storm gathering quietly behind my calm exterior. My parents continued their theatrics, bragging about my sister's wedding preparations, flaunting their generosity, their perfection. They didn't know I was listening. I even observed my sister discreetly. Her laughter, her entitlement, her little jabs at my expense, they were all theater. The real damage had been done by the adults who should have protected me, who had hidden the truth all these years. She was merely their mirror, reflecting their cruelty. As days passed, the suspense built. Each new piece of information, each discovery, sharpened my strategy. I imagined the confrontation, the precise way I would reveal the truth, the way the tables would turn, not with shouting, with anger, but with the silent, inevitable weight of fact. I even found myself smiling occasionally, quietly, when they spoke of me as if I were nothing. They had taught me well. Every insult, every dismissal, every forced smile at family gatherings had prepared me for this. And then, late one night, I found the final piece. A single document buried in the legal files, a ledger entry showing the true extent of the estate, the accounts, the hidden assets. They had assumed it would never be found. They had assumed I would never care. But I had found it. I leaned back in my chair, staring at the numbers. The storm was nearly ready. Every move calculated, every step deliberate. They would not see it coming. Not the truth. Not the reckoning. And when it arrived, it would be devastating psychologically, emotionally, completely. The balance of power had shifted, and I was no longer powerless. The day, decided to act, was quiet. Too quiet. The kind of silence that hides everything and exposes nothing at the same time. I walked into the study where my parents kept their files, the ones they thought were hidden. Locked doors, alarms, their smug confidence, all irrelevant now. I had the key, the documents, the undeniable evidence. I didn't knock. I didn't announce myself. I placed the files on the table, one by one, letting the weight of each sheet fall with a deliberate rhythm. Each page was a confession in ink and numbers, a testimony of every lie, every betrayal, every manipulation they had orchestrated for decades. My mother's eyes widened first. Her smile faltered. The mask slipped. I don't. Her voice cracked under the pressure of truth. I didn't respond. Silence was my weapon. I let the documents speak. I let the cold facts cut deeper than any shout could. Every account, every hidden asset, every misdirection, they were all laid bare. My father looked at me, disbelief painted across his face. How did you? He started. But I didn't wait. I only handed him the ledger, the final piece, the proof of everything they had tried to hide. He skimmed it. His hand trembled. And then the realization hit slowly, painfully. No, this can't be. His voice was smaller, weaker, as if the weight of their deceit had finally crushed him. I watched, unmoved. The storm inside me was controlled, precise. The years of humiliation, the whispered insults, the stolen opportunities, they all funneled into this moment. And I was composed, cold, calculated. My sister tried to interject, to plead, to deflect, but her words bounced harmlessly off the walls of truth I had constructed. She was no longer a threat, just another spectator to the inevitability of exposure. I leaned back, letting them squirm in silence. I let the documents settle, the reality sink in. No lies, no excuses, just pure, unalterable fact. And then I said it. 4 words, slow, deliberate. I knew it all. The room froze. Their expressions shifted from confusion to horror. My calmness, my detachment, amplified their panic. They had assumed ignorance, presumed weakness. But I had watched, calculated, waited. And now, the truth was unstoppable. My mother's lips trembled. My father's face paled. They saw it, not just the documents, not just the numbers, but the truth, that I had never been powerless, never been the failure they had claimed. I had been their equal, their observer, and finally, their reckoner. No one spoke for a long moment. The air was thick with the weight of inevitability. They could not argue, could not deflect, could not undo what had been revealed. And I realized then, the true power of truth. It didn't need violence. It didn't need rage. It needed patience. It needed precision. And when wielded correctly, could topple even the strongest facade. The revelation had arrived, and everything they thought they controlled had collapsed. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't storm the house or slam doors. Calmness was the most devastating weapon I had. They were already broken by the truth, trembling under the weight of what they had done. That alone was enough. I walked into the living room where the family had gathered, their curiosity tempered by fear. I held nothing but a small envelope. They didn't know what it contained, but instinct told them it mattered. Without a word, I placed it on the coffee table in front of my father. My mother's eyes flicked between me and the envelope, panic rising with each passing second. I didn't look at them. I let silence stretch, the pause pressing down like gravity. I could see the questions forming on their lips, but I answered none. The envelope contained everything they would ever need to understand the scope of their own failure. Legal documents, bank statements, proof of every hidden transaction, every deceit, every lie meticulously documented. My father picked it up, hands shaking, and opened it. His eyes widened, his face drained of color. My mother tried to interject, but I raised a single finger, not in threat, but in control. I let them read. I let them feel the power of truth as it crawled into every corner of their consciousness. I didn't speak. I didn't need to. Their realization screamed louder than any words could. Then, I said it. Just 2 sentences, deliberate and slow. I've always known, and now, so does everyone else. The room went cold. Their faces twisted, not with anger, not with defiance, but with shock, humiliation, and despair. Every family member present could feel it. The power had shifted. The scales had tilted. My sister tried to explain, to rationalize, to claim innocence, but no one was listening. I had already dismantled their defenses. Their words were meaningless. I stood, straight and composed, and walked toward the door. My final action was simple but devastating. I turned, looked each of them in the eyes, and said, I hope you enjoy the rest of your lives knowing who you really are. And then I left. No argument, no confrontation, just the cold, calculated exit of someone who had spent years watching, planning, and finally executing with precision. The silence I left behind was deafening. They could feel the absence of my presence, the void where control had once existed. They had lost more than money, more than respect. They had lost power. I had reclaimed it without raising a hand. And in that moment, I realized the true depth of my revenge. Not loud, not violent, not impulsive. Complete, total, unassailable. They would remember this night forever. Not because of what I said, but because of what I didn't. Not because of what I did, but because of what they could never undo. I walked into the night, free, unshaken, untouchable. The night air was cold, sharp, and pure. I walked down the empty streets, away from the chaos I had left behind. The weight of years of betrayal, manipulation, and silence lifted with every step. I felt nothing but clarity, no victory dance, no smug satisfaction, just the quiet understanding that the world could no longer touch me. I had removed their power over me. That was enough. Thought of my sister, my parents, the relatives who had once laughed at my misfortune. I felt nothing. Their desperation, their guilt, their humiliation, it was theirs to carry, not mine. I had done what needed to be done, and the rest was irrelevant. I passed the streetlights, each one casting long, lonely shadows. Shadows I understood now. Shadows that reminded me how long I had waited, how meticulously I had watched, how deliberately I had acted. Revenge wasn't a moment, it was a lifetime of calculation, brought to its precise conclusion. I remembered the envelope on my father's table. Every document inside had spoken volumes. Every proof had screamed the truth. And yet, I hadn't shouted. I hadn't forced them to see what I saw. I had simply handed it over. Control, quiet and exacting, was far more powerful than anger. A car passed, its headlights briefly illuminating my face. I did not flinch. I did not look back. I had walked through every betrayal, every insult, every slight they had ever thrown at me, and I had emerged intact, untouchable. The storm within me had been calculated, channeled, and finally spent. I thought of my own reflection in a shop window. The face staring back was calm, detached, free, no longer a prisoner to their judgments, their lies, or their failures. I was complete, whole. Years of quiet suffering, of watching my world twist against me, had culminated in one undeniable fact. I was no longer a victim. I had turned observation into power, patience into strategy, silence into weaponry. The truth had been exposed. The betrayers had suffered, and I had walked away, unmarked by their chaos. No pity, no closure sought from them, only from myself. Only from the knowledge that I had acted with precision, with intelligence, and with purpose. I stopped at a bridge, the river below dark and unmoving. The water reflected nothing of the world I had left behind. The night swallowed everything, my anger, my grief, my long-held need for justice. All that remained was the quiet clarity of someone who had survived the storm and walked beyond it. I let the night wrap around me. I let it carry the remnants of the past away, and I smiled, not for them, not for revenge, but for myself. I was free, free of their power, free of their judgment, free of the chains they had once thought could bind me. The envelope, the confrontation, the revenge, it had all been a mirror, a reflection of control regained. And as I disappeared into the shadows, I knew the final truth. Some victories are quiet, invisible, but eternal, and I would never look back again.